All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I did want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor and my current employer, Lean Techniques. Thanks for sponsoring this group. If you guys are looking for any delivery teams or any help with IT modernization or any help delivering, we do delivery teams. We also do help with, right now, I'm currently working on an AI project for a client. So if you're dipping your toes into AI as well, feel free to reach out to me and I can connect you to the right people or looking for a job or looking for consultants. We kind of do it all. So feel free to reach out. We're cloud agnostic. So this is the Azure user group, but we do a lot of work in AWS, React, Angular, um, Azure, GCP. So whatever you need help with, feel free to reach out and we'll do our best to help you and support that. If you need my contact information, you have me on Meetup, LinkedIn, any of that, and I can connect you to the right people depending on what you're looking for. Um, with that, give me just a second here. I'm gonna kill Slack so I don't keep getting notifications through this. We'll go ahead and kick off the book of news. This PowerPoint was built by Derek using, I believe, the 365 Copilot in just the generic book of news. So if you want this, we can share it out. Otherwise, it is just the book of news. If you Google book of news, I think
And
it's the
if
second
any
result.
if anybody has Copilot, being able to build this type of stuff with it was awesome. I mean, I fed that book of news document to it, and it just chewed it up and spit this out. So it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, which is super cool because this is just a big old PDF essentially that you can download. And now we have a PowerPoint for it. So I think we'll kind of ping pong. If anybody has any ideas or anything that they're really excited for, feel free to shout it out. One thing that I thought was really cool is we talked to a lot of clients about, can I get rid of this bar from Teams? I don't think I can. Um, this Teams bar is going to be obnoxious, so I'll just close all my other windows. How to get started with Copilot. So one thing they did announce was general availability of Copilot Studio. So this, I think, is kind of the new iteration of what used to be Power Virtual Agents. I could be wrong there, but the idea behind this is a low-code, no-code solution to build your own Copilot. So Copilot is Microsoft's like all-in-one, uh, basically chatbot. So you can actually put in here of if you want to do store operations, sustainability insights, website Q&A, all that sort of fun stuff. We can also add data. So we could include your own organizational data. A lot of this is also tied into the same access controls as SharePoint. So if you want to lean on your SharePoint administration as well, you can do that. And you could even create a Copilot very easily and quickly. As far as so we could do like a website Q&A. By default, the Microsoft data store is in here. We can create it. So watching this all in real time. We'll see how long this takes, but we can come back to it. And then you can actually, there's integrators built in out of the box to work for Teams, to work for all sorts of different tools. So Slack is another one. Your website, you can just drop it in. So there's all these different integrators already built in. So if you want to build a low code, no code solution, we can drop it in. You can also test it. So before you want to publish it, you can test it and get what kind of logic and thoughts are here. If we go to the library, here's all the different things we can use. We could add more. You can also add in your own APIs, which are cool. So it's just a Swagger-esque markdown kind of format. So if you have a Copilot, you have your data source, maybe you already have APIs that you want to expose. There was a workshop we worked through there that I think they're eventually going to release to the public where you can build basically an orders API, wire it in, and with some Swagger-esque docs in your .NET API, that's now exposable to your Copilot, and you can wire that in. So it's all pretty cool. Um, another thing I'm super excited about is Azure AI Studio was GA'd for everybody. So what that is this is kind of their, I think the phrase I keep hearing is LLM ops. So large language model operations. So in the same way that you would do CI/CD, this is starting to add more features into your AI experience so that you can have more of a CI/CD-esque pipeline that you build out. This is also your all-in-one platform for any sort of like model development you want to do in Azure. They have almost 1,700 models, a hair less. And then you have a few. This was kind of cool. So when I first started looking at this, I thought you could only use the ChatGPT models as serverless. So that's your like consumption-based usage. But there's actually a lot of models here out of the box that we can use as a consumption-based model. Otherwise, your option is you have to host it essentially like a virtual machine. So you pay for compute and pay to host it. If you're okay with that, there's a ton of other models there. But if you just want to do straight up, I only want to pay for it when I use it, there's actually a lot more models, 30 of them to be exact, that we can actually use for that, which is really cool. This is a little bit different than the AI Studio. So our Azure OpenAI Studio, which a lot of this functionality is in here. So if you're getting started in AI, I'd still recommend the Azure OpenAI Studio just because it's a little bit turned down, a little bit less stuff to get scared of. But yeah, it's really cool as you start coming into here. Also, if you have a specific use case but don't necessarily know what model to use, they do have some recommendations here as well. So if you want to do different things or have a specific use case, you can do like object detection. It'll say, okay, here are the best models to use for that, which is cool. So you can go through there, check out the licenses, all that sort of fun stuff. There is benchmarking as well. So you can look at the model benchmarking and see based on potentially what task you're doing. So it's the score based on the model. So you can go through here and see where everything scores on this scale. Prompt catalog, if you want to save prompts or share them across teams, you can build out a catalog in here. There are also some prompts that Microsoft provides for you. So if you're building something that maybe they've already thought about, you can do that. AI services, this is really cool. So this is where the CI/CD portion kind of comes back into play, is they have 4 different categories you can actually run on your model. So these all have integrations with GitHub or will. I'm not sure if they're out today, but based on what they showed at Build, you can actually run on different things. So like groundness detection, you could run this against your pipeline, see which line specifically is ungrounded, and basically get a score 1 through 5 of 1 being not grounded at all, 5 being super grounded on your data to tell you, hey, this data source is good. You can go ahead and use it or deploy the model because we changed the system prompt and now it's good to go, or we added more data, which completely ungrounded it. You can start adding more CI/CD there and seeing what that looks like. The other thing, if any of you have seen models be compromised, so Prompt Shield is a good one that they have of being able to protect against jailbreaks and other things there. And then also, we can look at different safety. So you can also run it against some of Microsoft's built-in. So they have particularly attacks of, hey, okay, we're going to run it through your system prompt and see if we can jailbreak it with your system prompt because maybe your system prompt is too vague or gives the user too much power. So you can actually run that too to get a sense of security or safety before you go live with a model of, hey, Microsoft ran 200 batch prompt shield attacks or jailbreak attacks on your stuff. We passed X jailbreak attacks. We passed X indirect attacks. And you can kind of have those numbers and that confidence metric to see, okay, here's where we are today. Maybe I introduced a change and it dropped or raised it. So it gives you kind of some ease of mind before you go deploy something to production. In the same of Azure OpenAI, you have your chat section and your assistance section, and then you have your deployments, connections, compute instances. So this is where, again, if you're hosting like your own VM, it would go in here, the users that let you go in, and then you can have content filtering. So you could put specific words or phrases if you want them specifically blocked. Another thing that is in preview that I thought was really cool, and I guess my region isn't supported, is video translation. So I think in the book of news they call it dubbing, but basically it's going to be translate and apply an AI voice across your videos. So the idea there is if you have like generic HR training or something that's not super important what exactly is going on in the background, you could potentially just dub that video or translate it to a different language. So theoretically Fight HR training content that's talking about cybersecurity or talking about, something else that maybe has super cool graphics or whatnot, but the background doesn't 100% like there's not text somebody has to read in the background. I could theoretically then feed it through this service, have a video translator, and do that. So I think that's really cool. It's something I know I've personally been looking for other things, especially since they've deprecated media services. So those are some things I'm super excited about. Derek, I don't know if you have anything that you're super excited about.
I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff in here that I was just going through my deck to see which slides to highlight. Where'd my deck go?
Well, while he's pulling that up, I think the other thing that was announced that was cool is SQL Server and Cosmos both have native vectorization support. So if you're going the AI path, I think they've shipped a lot of that work onto the servers themselves, which is cool.
I'm going to take over the screen, Alec.
Yeah, go for it.
Let's see this one. I'm going to start up a little bit. Where was so you just talked about the AI capabilities in Cosmos DB. That's something that we're starting to see quite a bit. Even Azure Functions. Azure Function was announced that they're taking on some of the AI capabilities. You'll be able to take content. So if you needed to chunk content, Azure AI can. And Matt, I totally agree with you on that one. We'll get that one, but. Azure Functions will be able to chunk your data and actually send it off to vectorize it, and then can store that vectorization for you. So you're going to see things like Azure Functions be able to start taking some of the workload off of the OpenAI stuff and handle it for you. See what else we got. Azure Migrate, not a big issue for me, but being able to support some of the hybrid use benefits, container storage. So if you're into containers, some ephemeral disk and better storage capabilities for dedicated for AKS. And this isn't actually AKS. This isn't actually container storage. Copilot messed up on some of the headers, but this is for actual storage. So some of the storage improvements, soft delete for NFS, geo redundancy for large files, and metacaching for the Premier SMB file shares. This one is one I'm a little bit excited about. So I love seeing the ARM-based virtual machines coming and improving. So Cobalt 100 was released for virtual machines. So if you want to use the ARM processors for your Kubernetes clusters to lower the cost and still have some great performance, then those are available. And then the ND series machines that will have the AMD AI accelerator on those also. So gives you some alternatives to some of the NVIDIA stuff also. That one's not a big deal to me. Developer tools. So I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look at .NET Aspire, but .NET Aspire is one that excites me for being able to help create native cloud applications. So I think we'll probably do a future session on that here in Azure Universe, just to show people the capabilities with .NET Aspire. I think it's definitely worth showcasing. .NET 9 Preview 4, so some performance enhancements with that. A new MongoDB provider for Entity Framework Core. And then there's some breakout sessions and stuff announced for around those. What else we got for developer tools? Code integration. So one of the things I saw that was really nice is we announced a new code migration tool for Visual Studios last fall. We announced that GitHub Copilot is going to be integrated with that migration tool also. So Visual Studios can assess your code for migration and then use Copilot to help overcome some of those issues that it found. If you've been around me for a little bit, Azure API Management Services is one of my favorite services within Azure. So the Azure API Center, which is being able to put all your APIs in one central location for people to find is now GA. There's also been a lot of enhancements with Azure API Management Services around AI. So native support for the load balancing and circuit breaker pattern within Azure AI services or APIM services. Before you had to kind of use kind of a hack. There was a script out there for policies that allowed you to do that. It was not the cleanest, so that stuff's getting built into APIM, and then even be able to track tokens and stuff. So it can do token counting for you also. So, and then working on some of the streaming capabilities that'll help support the AI stuff. So you'll see a lot of enhancements in APIM coming throughout the year based around supporting OpenAI or just AI services with Azure. So something customers are really embracing to use as a front end to AI in Azure. App services. So we've seen the release of the sidecar pattern for app services. Web Jobs integration for Linux-based app services, which kind of blew me away. I didn't even know Web Jobs was still a thing in Azure. I actually had a customer that I found a use case for just last month and found out that Web Jobs are still around and we're improving them and brought them to Linux now. So you can bring your Linux code into a web job to run continuously within app services. And then the GitHub Copilot for Azure Migrate was the piece I was talking about just a little bit ago. Auto scaling, so improvements in app service for automatic scaling and availability zones have been announced. Advanced security with TLS 1.3. I'm just kind of whipping through these folks because there's a lot of stuff that was included in this. Azure Container Apps, another service that I find highly interesting. So, a lot of improvements going into Azure Container Apps, Java support for app monitoring, the dynamic sessions for on-demand code execution was something that I've saw recently that was very interesting. Think about your AI LLM generating Python code to solve a solution that could then run in a sandboxed environment within Azure Container Apps to actually deploy that service. So it was, I think, interesting to see being able to watch AI solve its own solution. So if you need coordination among multiple LLMs, using something like AutoGen, and then take that code that it generates and deploy it into a sandbox environment so nothing bad can happen, ACA is going to be able to support that type of action. The .NET Aspire dashboard, so there's dashboard capabilities within .NET Aspire, so that's coming to Azure Container Apps also. Azure Functions. Azure Functions is also another one that had a lot of capabilities released, improvements released at Azure Build. The biggest being the Flex Consumption Plan. So this is one that Alex talked about. What excites you? Flex Consumption Plan excites me. So if you've struggled with getting scalability out of Azure Functions in the past, even deploying to like premium SKUs, you were limited to like 100 instances. Lack of control over the runtime, and Flex Consumption is going to solve a lot of that. So Flex Consumption allows much greater capacity, being able to scale up to 1,000 instances at a single time. I saw benchmarks where they said they were processing 1.6 million messages per second over a period of time. So if you need, high throughputs, maybe you're ingesting messages from in systems, throwing them out to an Event Hub or some other backend system, Flex Consumption Plan is something you definitely want to take a look at once it hits GA. Support of the Dapper model for Azure Functions. With some improvements in the programming model for triggers. There's some new triggers that were even announced. I think one of them was for blob storage with Event Grid at that point, and then availability to deploy your Azure functions into Azure Kubernetes services and Azure Container Apps. So we're getting into some of the Kubernetes updates, automated AKS cluster setup and management. So this is where you're getting into, Matt mentioned the AKS automatic. This is one of the things that probably excited me also was, customers trying to deploy Kubernetes, especially, AKS, require a steep learning curve to be able to manage that, set up and manage that cluster effectively, and create your best practices. So AKS automatically basically allows you to have an easy button to basically say, create my AKS cluster, following best practices, knowing that you have a great cluster out there. And then at some point, once you feel confident in your AKS skills and your organization has come up to speed and want to take over management yourself, there's actually a button that says basically switch. And you switch over to your own management then at that point. So it's no longer managed by us going forward. So great capabilities for customers to be able to get up and running faster. Before, you had either ACA or AKS fully, you managing or us managing. Now it's an intermediate where you can adopt AKS if you need some of the configuration capabilities and the API access for Kubernetes. So it gives you full Kubernetes cluster, but you not have to worry about managing so much. So
I think that's really cool because like I talk to people that for better or worse want to control a lot of stuff, and it's always been like that's been an argument against ACA, right? Is like one day we want to be skilled enough to use AKS, and I don't really want to go ACA and then I'm locked into Microsoft controlling my cluster forever. Like I want to eventually get to that point. So it allows you, like you were saying, more or less deploy to AKS with training wheels, I think is a good way to look at it of, hey, it'll be managed as long as we want Microsoft to do that. And then we can turn that off and we can fully manage our clusters once we feel like you were saying, Derek, we understand AKS or we understand Kubernetes or Docker. It gives you that kind of migration path without throwing you in the deep end in the wolves of, hey,
exactly.
Here's AKS. You may not really know Docker very well, but now you're going to learn Docker, you're going to learn AKS, you're going to learn how to orchestrate all of those, and it's all in the cloud. What could go wrong?
I mean, AKS, Kubernetes is a steep learning curve. I mean, for organization to manage them, deploy workloads to them, monitor and governance around them. It's a steep learning curve. So if before I would have pushed you to Azure Container Apps to say, hey, if you're just trying to deploy some containers, you don't need a lot. ACA makes a lot of sense. Now it just throws another tool into the shed to say, hey, this is an option you can take if you want to go AKS and grow into a solution. AKS automatic, I saw somebody referred to as AKS automagic. So gives you an option to use at that point. Some nice features with Azure Service Bus getting some enhanced geo redundancy features. One of them that I was excited about, I think it's on the network resilience. So basically being able to fail over on Azure Service Bus in the future with messages being preserved. So right now with Azure, if you tried to use an Azure Service Bus in a highly available situation, you incur an outage on the server service bus. The metadata is preserved, but the messages weren't preserved. So you basically got into a situation where you had to manage basically dual writes or some other recovery mechanism for them. So that's going to be baked into Azure Service Bus going forward. Some batch delete capabilities, being able to delete up to 4,000 messages in a batch, and then the other interesting one was the peak by state. So you could look at some of the peak messages in certain states, active and scheduled being the two right now. Some upgrades to Azure Static Web Apps. It'd be interesting to see someday how many people are actually using Azure Static Web Apps. I've had some good experiences with them, being able to deploy Blazor or Angular apps to the front end and not have to worry about a full app service at that point. So they're definitely continuing to get some enhancements around the enterprise grade and network isolation for improved security,
I like the
always
always
on
on.
managed functions. What's that?
Yeah, I really like the always on function of that because it used to be that you could only use the consumption based models for if you wanted to bring your own API. So the always on is cool because then you don't have to worry about either doing some shenanigans with, okay, am I going to do like a health check to keep my function warm? I instead can use an always on function. So I think that's really cool when you do bring your own or your managed functions for a static app. Especially if you're doing a really small app with a really small API, works really well. We do have a question, Derek. Has anybody used GitHub Copilot in conjunction with Upgrade Assistant? They're trying to upgrade a few .NET versions and libraries and are dealing with breaking changes between versions.
Yeah, and that's not an easy thing to deal with. If GitHub Copilot could potentially help you, look at some of those, but I mean, for the most part, I think breaking changes are going to be breaking changes that, there's not much you can do with it. I've seen some other solutions out there that might be able to highlight the areas that will be breaking changes and possibly even offer solutions. But I mean, those are paid tools out there to be able to do that. It'd be interesting, Dean. Are you using GitHub Copilot today, or are you just looking for opinions on if Copilot would be a good solution? And you can come off mute if you want.
We are not using it today. We're just trying to obviously see if there are any tools out there that will help us shortcut the pain, I guess.
So I've had conversations with customers around this a little bit, but some of it's been, hey, I've got a VB6 app still. Can GitHub Copilot help me, upgrade my VB6 apps? And it's gonna be yes and no. It's gonna help carry some of the load, but there's not gonna be any magic that it's gonna say, hey, Copilot's gonna do everything for you. It's gonna be able to help you maybe come up with some solutions for errors that are found, but it's not gonna, do the major lifting for you. That being said, I'm a Copilot user, GitHub Copilot user myself, and I deal with a lot of companies that have onboarded Copilot and find it extremely useful in general for developer productivity.
Yeah, it's really cool. It helps you get out of the fact of needing to Google stuff too. So like it might not help a ton depending on your upgrades, right? But just normal day-to-day stuff, if I have issues, I can not leave my Visual Studio Code if I'm using that, and just can keep there. But yeah, I've seen suggestions. Sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes Googling is still best, but especially when it comes to like more niche issues, like this particular library might be breaking me. The suggestions might be useful. Sometimes they aren't. So, but I haven't seen it magically be like, here's all the things you need to do to migrate to .NET, 8 from 6 or 7 or something like that.
The upgrade assistant was useful. It definitely helped us, map out the concerns. So that was good. It's really more just, when you have to upgrade all of these libraries and you have multiple changes in multiple different areas, how to tackle all that, I guess that's what you're paying the programmer to sit there and do, I guess. But anything that shortcuts that is, I'm sure, would be appreciated. So.
Have you looked at, I forget what it's called. Derek, you might know the Strangler Fig pattern. There's a .NET library to help you with that. Do you remember it off the top of your head, Derek?
No, I'm drawing blank.
Well, thank you. I don't want to absorb this whole time. So
no, you're good. I think it's called Yapper, and it stands for like yet another proxy. And the goal of that is basically you build your main application and then you start building a sub one. Where Copilot could really excel there is saying like, here's my .NET or my VB code. How do I write this in up-to-date .NET? And then it's basically kind of like a proxy that goes in front. So as you add new controllers, it'll first check the new system to see, hey, can I proxy the request to the new thing? And then you can potentially have both running in parallel in production as you start cutting stuff over. I'll find a link to that and post it, but that could potentially be powerful. And where Copilot could really help is this syntax changed and I need to lift and shift to the new .NET syntax. What does that look like? But I'll post a link to that. YARP proxy. That's the word I'm looking for.
Okay. Microsoft DevBox, another great solution for developers being able to spin up fully defined environments. So instead of having to constantly reconfigure your machine and support multiple different development environments, you can have DevBoxes sitting out there, be able to spin up and spin down and log into basically to handle your sessions. Some added functionality for being able to help control costs with those, being able to monitor them and look at telemetry better on them, and then hibernation, being able to shut those boxes down, if they're now actively being used. Other features, availability of Windows 11 Enterprise in the marketplace for DevBox use, custom images for third parties. So, if DevBox is a great opportunity for people to, if you've got complex development environments and want to be able to get developers up and running quickly across different projects. Say Alex working for Lean Techniques, they could have DevBoxes out there for different customers' projects and, not have to worry about your machine supporting everything at that point. So
I think
Azure development environments, this is on my bucket list to look into a little bit more, but being able to extend extensibility, being able to support Pulumi at this point. So we've had Pulumi presentations here in the past, a great company for infrastructure as code.
one thing that's really cool that I noticed, I don't know if it's in the book of news, it probably is somewhere. GitHub Workspaces we didn't talk about. So that allows you to potentially have AI try to take a stab at one, generating backlog items, and then it'll also take a stab at fixing things. So if it's real basic, and then where the environments piece comes in, you can actually click a button to preview what that code looks like in a throwaway environment. So what's really cool about that is I think of all the days and times somebody's like, hey, that text is a little big, or I don't like the validation rules on this input. That's really neat. I'll post a link in the chat about that. Right now it's in technical preview, so I don't know who all gets access to it. I do not at the moment, but I think that'd be a cool one to do a talk on later on. I don't know if it's in this. Sorry, Derek. I didn't mean to completely
I didn't find
hijack.
it. I just did a quick search. I didn't find it in the book of news. So interesting.
Maybe it's because it's a GitHub centric one, and GitHub now has their own conferences, but I don't know.
It could be. It'd be interesting to see. So Azure Event capability, Azure Event Grid capabilities. So compliant now with MQTT version 5 and in 3.1.1. Notifies apps on client disconnections, manages downstream tasks to maintain performance. So again, Event Grid is something that I find used a lot. I just haven't done a lot with it myself. Trying to see if there's anything else that, what else was it? Load testing. So if you guys are in Azure, it'd be interesting to see if anybody has started using load testing. So relatively new service, being able to load test from within your Azure environments, but we've added multi-region load test, so that way you can simulate load coming in from multi-regions. Be able to reflect real world patterns. So if you've got, load balancers or traffic managers and being able to hit those from multiple locations to see how that reacts, or if you've got traffic managers that are routing based on location it's coming from, it's definitely, great capability to to test out your app with that. And not a Python developer, unfortunately, but if anybody is, Locust framework integration might excite you. So where did it go? There it is. So enhanced app service, be able to run tests directly within the Azure portal against Azure App Service. So, all these are going GA. So load testing has been around for a little bit. So we're starting to see, a lot of these enhancements starting to go GA at this point. So cost optimization. So integrating load testing for Azure Functions for cost optimization, flex consumption plans. The Azure function stuff. So the concurrency is the other big thing for the flex consumption. Being able to control concurrency. I can set how many simultaneous functions I want running myself at this point, instead of allowing the environment to control it at that point for you. So if you're a Spring developer, Spring Batch support for Azure, managed Spring service for Spring apps. If you're looking to moving your Java applications, Spring applications into Azure, Spring Apps is a great environment to be able to utilize at this point, and definitely seeing some enhancements coming out for those. Managed service registry for Spring Apps. Logic Apps, another underdog in the Azure service world. I think Logic Apps can do a lot of great things that people don't realize, but we've definitely been enhancing Logic Apps to be more developer friendly, even though it's a no code, low code environment, making it more part of a CI/CD process for deployments. Trying to remember if this is the one where let me see. The zero downtime capability that we're adding. So finally being able to go into deployment slots, and then like we do with Azure Functions. In reality, Azure Functions and Azure Logic Apps are all built on the Azure App Service capabilities, the underlying service. So those deployment slots are should have been something that's been there in the past. We're just now getting around to adding them though. Sorry, we'll tickle my throat. Being able to run .NET custom code within a Logic app. Yeah. So, that way you can expand Logic App's capability if you've got some custom parsing or something custom you need to do. You can drop into some .NET code to accomplish that within your Logic app. This has also been extremely useful on API management services within policies, being able to run .NET code also. So, we continue to extend some of our services capabilities. What else for Logic Apps? Connectors into IBM systems. If you're still running mid-ranges on-prem, or mainframes, even being able to connect in those systems with Logic Apps. If you haven't checked out Logic Apps, if you've got workloads that, anything from EDI workloads to back-end monitoring, Logic Apps is a great, cheap way to be able to accomplish things within Azure. So Visual Studio 17.1, GitHub Copilot integration, continuing to enhance the Visual Studio's environment with GitHub Copilot. Trying to see if there's anything that really excites me. SQL Server developer tools for ARM64. So this right here, I think is going to be something interesting to watch over the next few years. I mean, we've come out with some new Surface hardware for ARM devices, and I think you're going to see that just to continue to accelerate. And so if you're running a Mac now because you love your ARM device, you may have some great opportunities to get better performance capabilities, especially in the AI world with the NPUs that are built into them. So I know Alex is chomping at the bit to switch off his Mac now.
Yeah, if Microsoft gives me a good deal on one, I'll buy one. But yeah, the NPU thing's really cool. The I don't know if it's in here or not, but the local Windows Copilot I think is in preview as well. If you have one of those computers, I think it comes in natively and it runs pretty slick. It reminds me of the Wayback Machine on the internet. So theoretically, you should never be able to not save a file again. Like you should never lose a file because you could always just go back a little bit and grab a snapshot of what it was when you had it last or that kind of thing. So I think that's really cool. Another piece I'm pretty excited about. Which slide are you on? Microsoft Copilot in Azure is in preview. I've played with that a little bit. It hasn't. I think it's okay. It helps push you a little bit directions, but I don't think it's as ground shattering, earth shaking as like a Copilot in Visual Studio.
I think you got to give it time. I mean, I think you're going to see it,
Yeah.
start ingesting more of your Azure data, so you can start asking questions like, what's this resource group costing me per month, or what are my biggest charges in Azure, and so be able to dig down into more information about your environment, and then this one also, being able to compile into SQL servers at that point, and being able to actually query databases with it and create schema and everything else with Copilot. So
Yeah, the biggest thing I think I've seen is the Logic app, or not the Logic app, the being able to query stuff to get the right queries in like App Insights and stuff has been really big because that language is unique to App Insights. And to your point of trying to find costs for stuff, it'll actually show you the query it uses to grab stuff. That has been pretty cool, but the amount of days I do that are few and far between. So I don't think it really changes my workload a ton, but when I do have to write a query for something, it's really cool. The other thing, I think if you go down one more, Copilot for Work, Teams Copilot feature seems really cool. I don't know if anybody's ever used like Otter AI or something similar to that, but it should help with meeting facilitation, I think was one of them they talked about, and also be able to give you a summary at the end of the meeting. So you could have action items, have assignments for people, and it kind of just listens in and does a summarization. So if you miss a meeting, it's not, hey, check out this recording that's an hour long. It's, hey, here's the high level bullet points. If you have a fixed agenda, it'll prod people along and be like, hey, Alec, you're running over. Let Derek talk or anything like that, which is pretty cool. So you can have it help facilitate your meetings and all that sort of stuff. I think that is coming soon as of right now. Oh, and it's on the next slide. Pretty much everything I just talked about. Meeting
I have
facilitation,
found
group
myself
collaboration.
using Copilot Work much more. I mean, every morning I have Teams generate a message for me that basically gives me, it looks at back over the last 3 days and said, here's the things that are waiting for your response. So to look at emails and team chats and basically spit it out and say, here's everything that is waiting for your response at that point. So I don't have to worry about, did I forget something? It's prompted me every morning at that point. So the querying capabilities of Copilot at work is phenomenal.
Dog food that like you get early access to it, because I don't
It's
know if
out.
that's it
I
is.
think it's out. So
Okay. And then I think that has to be added at an enterprise level if I remember right.
correct.
Yeah, so I think it's super cool. And I even get prompts already today in like Outlook or whatever. Like, it's been 3 days. Do you want to answer? I'm like, no, it doesn't need an answer, but it's cool to get those reminders.
We actually have a competition internal to see who can come up with the best prompt for Copilot at work.
Nice. And then hopefully share those out so we can use them too. Copilot Studio, we talked about a lot of the Copilot Studio capabilities they announced. There's a lot of really cool stuff. Power Automate, there's a lot of stuff in there for Gen AI that they're adding. And a lot more reporting in there. There's some Edge enhancements for screenshot prevention and up-to-date browser management. I don't know. I'm scrolling through the slides over here as well. So Power and Automate. I assume Edge enhancements are going to be a part of like the Copilot stuff. So like screenshot prevention. Maybe you don't want Copilot checking what you're doing on browser. Video
Yeah.
translation is cool.
It's probably going to be separate. I mean, Edge will have enterprise management capabilities like that to just prevent that in general. So
Yeah. What else is here? Teams premium features. Oh, and here's the intelligent recap. It's a premium feature apparently. Which is really cool though. It's a cool feature that I know there's entire companies around just doing that. So the fact that you can do that in a tool that you already have is pretty sweet. Enhancement for PowerPoint Live. What is PowerPoint Live? Oh, being able to present your PowerPoints live is cool. Oh, Teams now supports custom emojis, which is something I've been complaining about for ever since I've had to use Teams. So you can now have whatever emoji you want, which is funny because as soon as they announced that in the Teams chat I was in, everybody put the Microsoft logo on fire. It was the first emoji I noticed with a custom emoji, so that was funny. Slash commands. So long code blocks are now supposed to be supported in Teams, which I don't know if you've pasted code in Teams before. Hasn't been the best experience, but now it supports different languages and allows you to do some slash commands. So you should be able to actually share and annotate code in Teams now, which you haven't been able to before.
the slash command is how I took the book of build and had it generate PowerPoint for me using slash command. So I just said, hey, generate PowerPoint using this slash, and then shared the link of I copied it to Word document, but shared the Word document, and it just ingested it and went off and told me what it was doing as it was, creating this. And all of a sudden popped up a PowerPoint with all the slides in it. So extremely blew my mind at that point. So
That's super cool. I'm curious as to why some of these it decided to put pictures with and some not. I wonder if they're just like pictures above the sections.
No, I don't think the book of build had any. I guess there was a few pictures in it, but yeah, I don't know. Trying to see if any of those pictures that were actually in this, and I don't think they were.
Like, where did it come up with all these pictures?
All the stuff in the book of build was pictures of people where, like this one, I didn't see anything that included that. So
Weird. There is some pictures. I do see that picture of the person. I don't know if I see the emojis one. Anyway, SharePoint stuff, pretty cool. I think Power Pages. I mean, I think the biggest takeaway a lot of this is AI, Copilot. Everything is now more natively supporting AI, more natively supporting Copilots. A lot more of I think last year was the big earth shaking, like AI is here. This year was a lot of now here's how we're going to wire all of our services together to truly leverage AI. So a lot of, I think, a common thread where a lot of these things can now support AI out of the box, and how they're wiring together is a little bit more baked. So like, excuse me. Sorry about that. AI search used to, if you looked at the Azure samples a few months ago, the OpenAI search one, it used to say AI search would power your vectorization for like Cosmos and SQL Server. Now I think they've offloaded that workload to Azure SQL Server and Cosmos, so your AI search can truly just be your search, which is pretty cool because if you already have capacity on your server, why spin up another server in Azure if you have one that's going to sit idle when you really just want to index and be able to expose that data? So I think that's pretty cool. Power Apps has Git integration. LLM Ops is a thing now too. So again, you can protect your AI models, so you can run some tests and some stuff against them to confirm that you're not going to release the next thing that's going to be leaked or promise to give somebody a car for $1. If you're curious about that one, you can Google like the No Givesies Backsies chatbot. Somebody on Twitter got a car dealership to say this is a legally binding agreement, and they would sell him a car for $1 on like a fully loaded SUV, which was pretty cool. That's now my baseline for testing anybody's chatbot, is trying to get it to commit to creating a legally binding agreement and like give me $1 million or something else goofy. But yeah. Is there anything else anybody else was super excited about? Derek, I think Brian had a question about on-prem Azure AI Indexer with Azure Arc.
Yeah, I was trying to look. I actually had this conversation with another friend of mine, and Brian, that's why I asked you work for a medical-based company, because a friend of mine did, and they had requirements. I'm kind of interested in the requirement of doing an on-prem versus video indexer within Azure. His was because of HIPAA compliance, and that was one of the suggestions I had for him, but I don't think he wanted to go that route, because with that, I think for Azure Arc has to be deployed to a machine that has a Kubernetes cluster already on it. So you basically Arc enabling the Kubernetes cluster, and then you can start deploying services like app services and stuff, and Video Indexer being one of them on-prem then.
So you need at least something that's capable of running a Kubernetes cluster and then manage that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I saw anything new specifically for Azure Arc. Did you? Skimming through that.
I did not on this, which probably because of Ignite last year with a lot of the announcements. So I'm assuming because probably some stuff announced at Ignite last year that Build tends to be more of a developer conference, where Ignite is more the infrastructure stuff. So
if you had to guess, you'd say maybe Ignite would have new features for Arc or any new updated stuff.
yeah, typically. So
okay.
Now, like I do have to drop, unfortunately, for a 1:00 presentation I'm doing. So
All good.
Let you take over, man. So
yeah. Is there any other questions, comments? Anybody else have anything else they're excited about? Want to know more about anything else?
I'm curious if anybody's doing anything with face recognition, because it seems like all the big vendors are opting out of that for political reasons.
Just identifying faces or
Face
like
recognition, yeah, matching against grouping faces that are similar, that are the same person basically, or matching against the database.
Mhm.
It, according to Cloud, Microsoft offers it, but I think they took it away. Just same thing as Google. They removed it, so it looks like you're forced to use your own models or go on Hugging Face or something.
Have you looked at the? Is this free access? Have you looked at the Azure AI Face service by chance?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it does. I think they withdrew the capability of actually using it for face recognition due to the political situation, I guess. At least Microsoft. The only place I can do it is Amazon offers it with recognition. So that's Google and Microsoft have both withdrawn it, as best I can tell. But Amazon recognition still allows you to do it.
Wasn't that about 6 months ago when that all happened? I remember seeing that in the news.
I'm not sure what happened, but it's not available as far as I know anymore. But the old LLMs, or the chatbots, say it's possible until you challenge them and they go, oh yeah, you're right, this is no longer available, type of thing. After you dig deeper into it. But recognition, Amazon does it, so I'm reorienting towards Amazon, I guess, unless there's some, I'd like to do it with Azure or Google, but
It looks like potentially you can still do it. There's just some hoops you have to jump through. I just posted a link to their chat. It looks
You have
like
to-
you.
be
Go
a
ahead.
part, you have to be a Microsoft partner.
Oh, gotcha. Because I see you have to do like basically adhere to GDPR and Article 4 of GDPR. So you probably have to
They
explain
have a
them.
warning on all their sites, at least Microsoft does. It says you have to be and I applied for it, but even a friend of mine that works at Microsoft said some of his clients can't even do it. So you have to be a managed partner with Microsoft.
Interesting. I'll definitely look more into that. I guess I've never tried to do that. I'm doing image recognition with models, but that doesn't have people in it, I guess. So
Yeah.
totally
it's just-
different thing.
Its faces are becoming part of the political stuff with the police departments and stuff, so they're trying to control it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's interesting. I'm curious to see where that plays out. But let me check on my side to see if I can find anything else for you. I would
Yeah,
assume.
that'd be great.
Yeah, I can reach out to Derek specifically and ask him about that if he knows. If nothing else, maybe he can help fast track your application or at least get you to talk to the right person to say, look, I promise I'm not doing anything nefarious.
Well, yeah, I'm building a pretty basic app for home consumer use, but it's not nefarious at all. But that'd be awesome if we could find a way through that. Like I said, I did find at least one Microsoft contact I had said he knows of some of his customers that they wouldn't allow to use it, and I did apply. I'm not a managed customer, so I don't have a lot of standing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll connect with you outside of this and we can chat further or I can see what I can dig up.
Yeah,
I'll
that'd
just-
be awesome. Thank you.
Brian, is that your name on LinkedIn as well?
Yeah, Brian Roof.
Okay.
It's Brian A. Roof at Gmail.
Let me see if I can find you and then I can get you some information on that.
Brian.A.Roof or UF
Yep, I see you.
at Gmail.
Brian.A.roof@gmail.
Yes.
Okay, I'll connect with you on LinkedIn too, and we can chat there, or I can send you an email, whatever's.
Awesome. That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. I'm going to stop the recording. If anybody else has any questions, comments,